The US labour market has added an average of almost 230,000 jobs a month over the past 3 months. In addition, the unemployment rate has edged down further. So what should we expect from non-farm payrolls on Friday? Well, economists are forecasting 205,000 new jobs to have been added during March, with the unemployment rate forecast to hold steady at 4.9%. The average number of hours worked per week, that's expected to increase slightly to 34.5. Well, average hourly earnings will be on the market's mind as well, with it acting as a real gauge for inflation. Well, for more, we're joined by Simon French, Panmure Gordon's chief economist. Thanks very much for coming in. Following on from Yellen's comments, those non-farm payroll numbers really are in the limelight, aren't they?
Yeah, it's the data point, isn't it, that everybody looks for. I think within the non-farm payrolls, the most important single data point will be the average earnings data. For a lot of those wavering FOMC members thinking about the trajectory for US rate rises, they want to see the white of the eyes of wage inflation taking hold in the US economy before they're prepared to move the Fed funds rate higher. So we had a surprise decline in average earnings in last month's data.
And that really took the shine off the positive top line number, didn't it?
Correct. Markets didn't know at all how to interpret what was a very positive number in terms of jobs added, but then a disappointing wage inflation number. And I think they won't be hoodwinked twice. They'll be looking, I think, first and foremost for that earnings number. And actually, the number of jobs added takes on secondary importance, because that unemployment rate of 4.9% is not far away from the natural rate of unemployment in the US economy, the kind of level that the Fed are very comfortable with. They really, really need to see earnings growth come through.
When you talk about comfortable, I mean, things have improved in the US labour market, but we're still far from what Yellen, the fabulous decade, the 1990s. And for consumers to really drive the recovery even further, you know, we do need to see the wage growth go up. Yep. We need to see the quality of jobs go up.
Yeah, it's a really, really good point. And then when you look at some of the data comparators in terms of the unemployment rate, you'd say, well, we are back in that nice decade, to quote Mervyn King, prior to the financial crisis. But actually the key data point, and a lot of people are focusing on the participation rate, is actually the number of people who are in part-time employment but want full-time jobs, to your point on the quality of employment. And while that remains elevated, significantly elevated from where we were prior to the financial crisis, there is a hidden amount of labour supply that remains in the US economy that could be pushed into action should the economy grow further. And I think for a number of Fed members, they'll want to see that involuntary part-time working number come down to pre-crisis norms before the US economy gets that next leg up.
You mentioned the participation rate, because that's another important gauge that people are looking at. And the IMF recently said that they feel the gains we've seen is going to continue for a long time. Do you feel the same?
I do, but there's not a return to norm, the pre-crisis norm in the participation rate, because demographics have changed within the US economy. I heard Ben Bernanke speak before Christmas, and he was clear that the Fed's view was a lot of the decline in the participation rate was expected, was not cyclical at all, but was very much structural. And therefore, there is a danger if you are expecting a participation rate back at pre-crisis levels, you'll be disappointed, and also the Fed aren't expecting that and therefore won't be looking at that.
In terms of an overall view of what we get, so obviously we said wage growth actually is now number one, and the other numbers kind of coming in behind that. In terms of the US economy, for you at the moment, what are we seeing? Well,
we're seeing a real divergence between the consumer, the services sector that has really benefited from the commodity market rout and has effectively delivered them a tax cut through lower energy costs and those second order costs falling across goods and food. And therefore the retailers, the consumers, the service sector are doing very well, but the manufacturing sector, consistent with a lot of actually the global economy right now, is really struggling, particularly those facing off to the oil services sector. So you've got a split picture, not one that is going to drive ahead with 4.5% growth this year, but one with much more moderate growth rates, consistent with a split picture.
Okay, got to leave it there, but thank you very much. Simon French there from Panmure Gordon.